good. I want to go out and maybe try to run a marathon or something. But it requires a lot of determination and a lot of stamina and exercise. You got to put a lot into it. And that's one of the things that you notice about athletes. They spend countless hours perfecting their craft. They spend countless hours practicing, preparing for, in a lot of cases, something that boils down to just a few minutes. I mean, if you look at how long they practice for a football game, that's roughly about a 4-hour game, depending on how things go. But they spend months and months of training. They want to make sure they're in top physical condition because they know that at a moment's notice they're going to be called and they need to make sure they step up to the plate. Growing up, I didn't really want to be an athlete. I wasn't really into sports a lot, but what I really was into was science. And one of the things I really, really wanted to be was an astronaut. I don't know, has anybody ever seen some of the stuff they go through for astronaut training?
Yeah.
You know, this really, really cool gravity thing that just spins them around like insane, you know. And some of these guys, when they were going through the training, they would actually try to challenge each other, and they would make fun of each other for how long they could actually last before they passed out. I mean, they'd go into deeps, the pools, and they would go through all this really cool training because they knew that they needed to be in top physical condition. And so, you know, if we're looking at sports, who here has ever actually played in sports? Okay. Were you able to be your best just by showing up the day of the game or showing up for the time when you needed to run or something? Did you have to actually put in some exercise and actually some thought into it? I don't think any of us really are able to just be our best simply by getting out of bed. You know, and that's the thing. We know what it takes to be able to do good in sports. We know that we need to make sure we get a lot of rest. We practice a lot. We eat good food. We know what these things take. And because, you know, let's face it, in our world, we're really, really big on outside appearances and how we take care of our bodies. And in Jesus' time, this wasn't any different. In fact, in Matthew 15, there's this story about the Pharisees coming before Jesus. And because what had happened is they were eating, but they weren't washing their hands. And I know it seems kind of like that's not a big issue. But in their culture, it really was. It got to the point so much that they actually had this massive ritual on how to wash your hands. And you go to either some water, whether it be a bowl, or you go down to the lake, and you actually had to take your fist and you rub it in the palm of your hand. You have to do this back and forth to get the dirt off, and then you rub your fingers together, and then you have to hold your hands up so the water drips down from your elbows and back onto the ground. It was this ritual that they thought was really important because how you treated your body was what made you either acceptable or unacceptable to God. That's how they looked at it. So you understand that when Jesus is telling his disciples to wash their hands and go through this huge ritual, this is a big affront to them, to the Pharisees, because this is like, hey, you're telling us that it's okay to sin, and we know that that's not a good thing. So as they confront him, Jesus goes, wait, you're getting this all wrong. So what he does is there's this big crowd, because everywhere Jesus went, there was a crowd. I mean, how many wish they had like this entourage to follow them around? You know, Jesus had this. And he calls them all to him, and he says in Matthew 15, verse 10 to 11, he says, listen, and understand here for a moment, okay? What goes into a man's mouth does not make him unclean, but what comes out of his mouth, that is what makes him unclean. So Jesus is saying, you know, you're always concerned about these outward things, you know, what you do to your body, how you take care of that. He goes, but, you know, it's not that makes you unclean. It's what comes out of your heart. And so, as he says this, he walks away, and his disciples, you know, they're trying to absorb everything he says. And for whatever reason, because of their culture, this has got them really confused. Because according to what they just heard Jesus say, he said, hey, it doesn't matter what you eat, it doesn't matter what you do, it's all good, you're fine. And they just can't wrap their minds around this. So, the ringleader of the group, Peter, comes up and goes, Jesus, I have a question for you. What the heck does this mean? Are you telling me that I can eat whatever I want? Are you telling me to just disregard everything I've been taught since I was young? That it doesn't matter what I put in my body? And Jesus' response is in Matthew 15, 16 through 20. He goes, are you so dull? Which is really funny. Don't you wish you could get away with talking to people like this? He goes, are you an idiot? What is wrong with you? how is it you can't get this? Because I've been with you for so long, you ought to see what I'm talking about. I'm not being as literal as you think I am. Don't you see that whatever enters your mouth, it goes in your stomach and it comes out. Eventually, your body processes it and it goes away. So that really doesn't make you unclean. Next. Oh, there we go. But there you go. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, and slander. All these things that they knew made them unacceptable to God. These are what makes a man unclean. But eating with unwashed hands does not make you unclean. See, they were concerned about their bodies and their outward appearance and these rituals they had to make sure that that worked out right. Because how they saw it was what they did with their bodies made them either acceptable to come before God or not acceptable. But Jesus is saying, no, you've got it all wrong. Those things don't make you unclean. It's not about what you eat. Okay? In Luke chapter 6, Jesus puts it another way. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. He goes, okay, if you want something good, you're not going to go to a dead tree. And you're not going to find good fruit growing on a dead tree. Okay. The good man brings good out of the good stored up in his heart. And an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For out of the overflow of his heart, his mouth speaks. And then 46. Oh, no. That's okay. So the main thing here is that Jesus is saying what comes out of your heart is what makes you unfit, unclean. So we always have to ask ourselves, what is that? How does that stuff get in there? We know the heart is important. The heart is not simply what you feel. The heart is not the emotions of you. The heart is the core of who you are. It's where your thoughts, your emotions, and your beliefs all combine to make you who you are. The question is, how does that stuff get in there? Because Jesus told us back in Proverbs that we needed to make sure that we guard our heart, because out of it is a wellspring of life. So, if we need to guard our heart, because what comes out of our heart is what makes us either clean or unclean, how do we guard our hearts? What does a guarded heart look like? I want you to take a moment around your table, around the people that are with you, and just discuss, what does a guarded heart look like?